All right, cool. Let me just get this up here and all right, just count me down and I'll start the intro.
3, 2.
Welcome, beautiful people of all ages, shapes, and colors, to another episode of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, where we encourage you to stick to the basics. I'm one of your hosts, TV, aka TV on Basketball, alongside my co-host Jay, aka the Knockdown Jay. How's it going, my guy?
It's going, bro. Playoffs are up. We're 2 games deep, 3 games deep.
A lot to
That's a
talk
great
about.
series, bro. There's a lot to talk about. It's a lot to think about, bro, considering the fact that a lot of these matchups are coming out kind of exactly how we expected to an extent, with a couple of surprises sprinkled in, especially because of the injuries, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
We will definitely get into that. It's going to be a playoff-heavy episode. It's going to be a really good one for you guys. Going to go through each of these series, also discussing some of the awards that were announced, and we're going to be finishing it off with another quiz. So it should be a great episode. But before we start, we do have to plug our socials. Remember to follow at KnockdownJ, at TV on Basketball, our personal socials. On TikTok, Instagram, all the good stuff. Our personal links will be down in the description below. In terms of the Hit Your Free Throws podcast, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if you're on any of the podcast networks, either Apple or Spotify. And remember to subscribe to the YouTube, hit the notification bell, like the video, so you will not miss an episode, because we got some fire episodes coming to you in these next couple of weeks. Some double episode weeks, all the good stuff. We are locked in to NBA playoff basketball, and it's going to be a sick time for us. But yeah, Jay, with all that stuff out the way, are you ready to talk some playoff basketball?
Let's go, bro.
Let's go. We're going over to the East, and we're going to start off the first matchup we're going to be discussing, the 1-8 matchup between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Miami Heat. It's been a pretty interesting series, but unfortunately, it has been hindered by some very key injuries to both Giannis Antetokounmpo, who missed Game 2 due to a lower back injury, and then Tyler Hero, who is out for at the least 4 to 6 weeks due to a broken hand. Jay, it's tied series 1-1. It's been kind of disappointing, though, so far.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that comes to mind in terms of either one of these games is the lack of shot creation, right? I think when you look at it from the Miami Heat's perspective, they had to rely on a crazy game from Max Strus to keep things, super competitive in Game 1. But then you look at it on the flip side for the Milwaukee Bucks, right? As soon as Chris Middleton got to cooking, things looked different for them, and they looked much more productive, even with Giannis Antetokounmpo out. These are 2 teams that kind of both are, man, we talked about it a lot in the previews for these series. Like, physicality is one of the names of the game in the Eastern Conference, and especially in a series like this one. So when you take out Giannis Antetokounmpo, it does kind of level the playing field a little bit. I got to be honest when you look at it from that perspective. But I think when you look at it from the opposite side for the Miami Heat, losing Tyler Hero – it's not a physical element to that, but he's their only real shot creator outside of Jimmy Butler. So it's going to be interesting to see how they hold up. Both teams play defense. Both teams lock up. So that's not going to be really an issue. The funny part about it is, for 2 teams that play defense, these been some high-scoring games, though.
Very high-scoring games.
So I think it's really going to come down to, one, Giannis and how long he's going to be out, because we know Tyler Hero's done for the series. But the other thing, too, is I don't think there's another series in this entire first round where role players are going to matter as much in terms of the overall impact on the floor, because I think that this is a series, for example, where I think this could be like a really decent Bobby Portis series that they let him cook. You know what I'm saying? I feel like that, especially against the second unit. I don't think they're gonna see a lot of Miami Heat's second unit, but I'm saying I think that Miami has some warts that Milwaukee can expose, and vice versa. Like we said with the Max Strus thing. Like, if those guys show out, this could be way more interesting. But I think starting group, I'm still feeling pretty safe about the whole Milwaukee in 5 thing.
Yeah. When Giannis went down with the injury, it did look pretty bad for the Milwaukee Bucks, especially because, the Miami Heat was cooking that game. Jimmy Butler did his absolute thing. And even though they lost Tyler Hero in this one, there was basically the game over, or was already over, when Giannis did go down. The role players, like you mentioned, they're extremely key in this series. Now that you got 2 guys who are near the top of their teams in terms of scoring production, like going out. You're gonna need some guys to step up. And for the Heat so far, I mean, Kevin Love has had a pretty good game. Victor Oladipo has had a pretty good game. They're gonna need a bit more from Kyle Lowry and some like other guys over there. But we've seen them perform in big moments in the past. In terms of the Bucks, I don't know. I mean, like, even in the year that they won the championship, if you remember, Giannis was out for the majority of the Atlanta Hawks series in the conference finals.
True.
So it's not. I'm not gonna say that like it's still like they could still like easily win this. It's gonna definitely be a battle because now that Giannis is out, it's gonna definitely level the playing field. But these guys have performed in big time moments even without Giannis. I mean, literally these last two games, like Middleton has been one of their leading scorers, like averaging 20 plus points a game. Lopez has had some big games. Drew Holiday showing his thing, and especially in that last game. That last game against the Miami Heat, they had 7 guys in their team scoring at least 13 points or more. So that is like working by committee. Like that is what the Bucks have been able to do, like without Giannis on the court. And when all of them are hitting their shots, I mean, when Chris Middleton is playing back at a pretty high level, you got Drew Holiday playing in his all-star, an all-star caliber level. This Milwaukee Bucks team is still a pretty deep team, even without Giannis. So if this problem lingers as the playoffs go on, this might become a problem. But I even still think, I mean, like, I think I had the series going like 5 as well. I think that's still a possibility, but again, when you have Jimmy Butler on the other side, it's an extremely tough match. It's gonna be extremely hard for the Bucks to be able to contain him. But now without Tyler Hero, man, I mean the Miami Heat is scoring, which was already bad in the first place, is taking a massive hit. So yeah, I mean, I thought it was gonna be a fun series, like a pretty fun series going into it, but now I feel like there's just like it's lacking the star power without Giannis and without Tyler Hero. It's tough to have those guys go down. I still feel confident the Bucks winning, but yeah, I feel like the air has been just taken out of the series.
Yeah, I mean, we're at that point now. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to bring up injuries in another series too. That kind of it changes the entire momentum around what we felt like the series was gonna look like at the beginning.
Yeah,
this is definitely one of those. But I keep harping on it only because I think it's an important point for a series like this one. Even with Giannis Antetokounmpo out, I think that the physicality that's going to be presented in a series like this is going to be a big enough equalizer where this can still be a fun matchup across the board. His timeline is important for bigger things than just the first round, though. Not to say that I'm guaranteeing they come out of the first round or anything. This could go the distance. But what I'm saying is we both know that this team cannot go all the way without Giannis Antetokounmpo available. And I think that they can get away with a series like this one, like you mentioned, kind of similar to the Atlanta Hawks series a couple years ago. But the sustainability moving forward is going to be tough again, especially when you're bumping and bruising around with a team like the Miami Heat.
Yeah, 100%. But even if you're bumping and bruising around, if the Milwaukee Bucks hit 25 threes again, then that's not really much of an issue, because that last game where they absolutely went off for 3, like, no, I don't care how good you are defensively. If you're letting 25 threes in, you're losing that game. And the Bucks, even like if there's one thing, at least one positive that Giannis is off the court for, it's just better spacing. That means moving Bobby Portis into the starting lineup, which means all 5 guys can hit a 3. Right. That means basically everyone coming off their bench can hit a 3. So you have like this 5-out type of offense, with like Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton as like the de facto like ball handlers now that Giannis is not on the floor. It's going to create problems for the Miami Heat. And when you take away one of their top like 3-point shooters and Tyler Hero, it's going to make it even more tough. So yeah, it's still going to be a very interesting series. Maybe not as fun to watch now without these 2 guys, but it's still going to be interesting to see which way it goes, one or the other. Both teams, I still believe, do have a chance, but I'm still kind of leaning the Bucks way. Next series we're going to be discussing is the 2-7 matchup, the Boston Celtics and the Atlanta Hawks. I said at this, I mean, like the Hawks played good in the play-in tournament, good for them for getting the 7 seed. But going into this, I mean, the Boston was playing absolutely fantastic, and so far this series they've shown their dominance through and through. Jay, what is your biggest takeaway from the series?
The biggest takeaway is that Trae Young is not going to be able to imprint himself on this series the way that I think he needs to be able to in order for them to win.
Yeah.
It comes down to what we talked about in the preview. Boston just has too many bodies, too much switchability, too much flexibility within their roster, up and down to the point. TV, they've been so comfortable that Grant Williams has not played that much for them, if at all, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
don't think he's played for
I
the
don't think he
series.
played a
Yeah.
minute for them.
Yeah.
And Grant Williams was one of their best players last season in terms of making their finals run. He
Yeah.
hasn't played at all. That's how I hate to say how comfortable they are, but I do think from a matchup standpoint, first of all, Robert Williams being this effective is actually like a very positive sign for them because we know how important he's going to be in terms of them making a long postseason run. But I think the fact that they are so comfortable with the lineups that they're utilizing to the point that a guy like Grant Williams, who has the kind of physicality and switchability at his size, despite being a little undersized at the power forward position, he would be a guy that like does still fit relatively well in a series like this. Yet they are so comfortable with their guys as it is, they don't even feel like they have to pull that weapon out just yet. So it's kind of scary for Atlanta because if this is what the first two games look like, if they even remotely make this sticky, they just can pull Grant Williams out and boom, now you have a whole nother wrinkle you have to deal with.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this series has been kind of the way I've been seeing it. And like Grant Williams not playing, I mean, it's been kind of a weird year for Grant Williams in general. Like he's kind of been in the rotation, been out of the rotation. But we know when it comes to the playoffs, and especially what he was been able to bring last year, that he could be a game changer. He could be a difference maker on that basketball court. And they haven't been like they even had the need to like even test that out yet this series. But man, we don't even have to talk about Jason Tatum in this series. We don't have to talk about Jaylen Brown. Derek White, man. Derek White has been going crazy this series. And man, Chuck did that man dirty in that and like inside the NBA the other day, calling out this man's forehead. Get out of here. After going like for two absolutely fantastic games, Chuck had the audacity to just talk about this man's forehead. Get out of here, Chuck. But man, Derek White has been like such a difference maker just because when you're the Atlanta Hawks, you know you have to deal with Jason Tatum. You know you have to deal with Jaylen Brown. When Derek White is your second leading scorer in the playoffs thus far, you can't account for that because you still have to deal with the Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown problem. But when Derek White is doing his thing over there, like and like putting up like back to back 24 and 26 point games respectively in these two games, then what else? Like, what is your other answer? Because we already know that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are like a walking, like basically 50 points every single night. When you have a third guy you have to deal with, and then you still getting some production from people like Marcus Smart, six man of the year, Malcolm Brogdon. We're going to talk about that a bit later. They really just don't really like stand a chance. DeJounte Murray has been good. DeJounte Murray has had a pretty good series so far. Trae Young has been kind of up and down, and then it's kind of like whatever you can get from the other guys. There hasn't been really much consistency from the people from the other guys around the Atlanta Hawks. The only time I felt confident for them in the series was game 2, the first quarter. They were up by 11 points. Yeah. That disappeared in 3 minutes. So that was the only time they were in control of a game. I just don't see them like having really any chance here. I mean, I think this is the one series where I was like potentially going for a sweep. I think I ended up in 5. I don't see that changing at any time soon. I just from the way I've seen the Hawks play and just the Celtics, how they're kind of clicking on all cylinders right now, I don't see this going long, man.
Yeah, but I think if anything, when you look at Atlanta and how they're playing in this series, that goes to show that them throwing a party against Miami wasn't necessarily a fluke, but it wasn't something that was going to be translatable. You know what I'm saying? I think when you look at the way that game went, where they kind of were just up and down the court playing at a high pace. They were flying around. And you could tell the winner go home attitude definitely came and showed its hand in that game. But at the same time, though, I think it went to show that when they play up against a team that can't meet their pace, right?
Yeah.
They can rough ride them. They can rough ride them crazy. They can run rush right over them. But when you play against a team, again, this is the crazy thing about. You mentioned Derek White, who, by the way, I'm gonna bring something up about him in a second because I have a question for you in regards to Derek White specifically. Here's the thing too. When you look at a team like the Boston Celtics, they're so versatile in terms of their lineups that it allows them to be able to kind of match whatever it is that the other team is trying to do. And they can do that through their lineup flexibility. You mentioned Derek White. That kind of is their way by not playing Grant Williams. That's kind of their way of combating the speed that Atlanta benefits from.
Yeah.
He's a guy who puts pressure on the rim. He's a guy who you can make an argument like on any given day that Derek White is like their second best perimeter defender, like on any given night. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the fact that again goes back to the ability to give Jason Tatum some time on Trae Young, Jaylen Brown time on Trae Young, Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, maybe not Malcolm Brogdon as much, but that's still an option. Derek White. Yeah, Derek White as well. They have so much switchability where they can be able to flex different looks at Trae Young. And I think that's why he's had such an up and down series through 2 games. But here's my thing. Here's the one question I do have, TV.
Yeah.
Derek White's done this before. We've seen this movie. San Antonio Spurs, Derek White gave us something that we thought was gonna be like the next dude.
I remember,
I don't want to assume too much, but I'm saying we've seen this movie before where Derek White balls out and it's almost like he sets the bar too high for himself, right? And then when you need him to do the standard, the absolute average in order to make sure that your team is still optimal, that's when he throws the stinky games out.
Yeah.
So the question to you is, should Celtics fans be worried that Derek White seems to be getting his high octane offense up and out early? I know it sounds crazy.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
I do wonder if him having the series of his life, again, it's only 2 games, but if he's going to ball out in a series like this, where I don't think this was the series where they needed a Derek White come up, are they wasting the pixie dust a little bit?
I mean, you just take good games when you can. I think if you're the Boston Celtics at this point, you take the good games when you can. And what's good about Derek White's role here is that even though as much as he's scoring right now, we know where the ball is going to like 80% of the time. It's to Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Those 2 guys are going to always be a focus on the defensive end for other teams. Whatever Derek White gets you, I mean, so far, I mean, his averages are basically like 13 points a game throughout the season. But whatever he's giving you extra from that is just an extra benefit. It will level itself out, I do believe so. This is definitely not going to be able to like continue on for the entirety of the playoffs. But you take what you can get, and like either way, if you have like a really good series so far from Derek White so far, you just take it, and like that just like gives like another element that doesn't really allow the Hawks to get back into the series. It might be a bit tougher, maybe against a Cavs team or a potential Knicks series if they do go up against that. But at the end of the day, I think that he is great for this role just because there's just no pressure on him to really score that much. He was brought in to be a catch and shoot guy, the guy to put pressure on the rim, be a decent defender. He doesn't have to get the ball in every position. He just like has to hit the shots when he's open. This is just becoming to like another level of this series. So even if it doesn't really work out the other series, I think that the Celtics in general are just so deep that they can make up for in other areas because Brogdon, he can have a series of his own. Marcus Smart has shown that he can have some massive games in the playoffs as well. We haven't even gone to the Grant Williams aspect. Al Horford, who has been one of the best 3-point shooters in the entire league this year, can still have some big games. So I think that this team is deep enough. The fact that you're getting Derek White games now is still like very good. I just think that even if he does like drop off, this team is still good enough where they can just pick up the slack from other areas. So
that's fair.
So I think that's going to be something to still look out for him. Maybe the next series is going to be the Sam Hauser series where he gets like 3 or 4 threes a game, and that just becomes a big of an X factor. So the Celtics team is deep, man. The Celtics team is deep, and they look very dangerous going forward in these playoffs. Man, we're getting like a lot of the stinky series out the way. The 76ers versus the Brooklyn Nets. The 76ers are up 3-0. I guess. Man. Oh man, like it's the Nets have tried. The last 2 games, the Nets have tried. They really have, but the 76ers have just way too much firepower. Jay, what is your biggest takeaway from the series? If there really is like anything to like take away?
I think my biggest takeaway is this is the best version of the Philadelphia 76ers that we've seen in terms of their makeup from a roster construction standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like we've been saying that all year, but it never really optimized itself because we never really understood what it meant in big moments.
Mm-hmm.
But if you remember specifically, let's go back to, I believe it was game 2. Game 2, Joel Embiid had like like an eye, right? I think it was like a
Yeah.
20-point night for him, 20
It
and
was a
7.
20-point night, but they absolutely locked him down in the first half. They didn't even get him, like, he couldn't even get the ball.
And James Harden, I think he shot like 4 or 14 or something.
Yeah.
And Tyrese Maxey steps up in a big way. I think the thing that makes the most sense for this team, this might be sick to say because we're talking about a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
They have a guy who can balance out a playoff choker. I know it sounds crazy.
Yeah.
I know it's kind of bold, but James Harden is notoriously known for having bad games at weird times.
Yeah.
The Sixers, you mentioned this in our preview, have a weird way of playing with their food when it's right in front of them.
Yeah.
This was a series with the way that the Nets have been playing and the guys that they have on their team that around game 3, this series could have got interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with the way game 2 ended, where both of the 2 top guys didn't really play that well.
Mm-hmm.
But Tyrese Maxey was an equalizer, and Tobias Harris also had a very big game in game 2.
Yeah.
I think that's what really makes this series a lot better in terms of learning about a team like the Sixers, is we're seeing what those other pieces are able to do fitting within a role around the 2 top stars in a way that we haven't seen the Sixers really be able to utilize in past seasons, where we thought pound for pound, talent-wise, those Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid teams, for example, right?
Yeah.
Pound for pound, talent-wise, we thought they could hang with anybody. I think pound for pound, build-wise, the Sixers can go with anybody. But I think that translates better to a postseason setting than the talent on your piece of paper.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that in a series like this. I know it seems a little far-fetched because it's the Nets, and they're a team that we definitely did not have making too much noise. But I think we're seeing why this roster makes sense in a series like this.
Yeah. And so far this series, I mean, what has been the Nets' like biggest goal? Just to get the ball to Joel Embiid's hands, especially in game 2 and game 3. They've had him under 15 shots in both games, so which is pretty big for like a potential like MVP winner and Joel Embiid here.
Yeah.
But the other guy stepping up has been the key to the series for them. Tyrese Maxey has been fantastic. He has been absolutely fantastic in the series. We've, as a Raptor fan, I already know what this guy could give us. This guy was absolutely killing it for the Sixers in that series last year against the Raptors. And now when you have games where Joel Embiid can, it's even hard to get an entry pass into Joel Embiid. When you have someone to alleviate the pressure, like Tyrese Maxey, that can give you a 25-point game, a 33-point game. By the way, in that 25-point game, Brooklyn had that game 1, but then it was a 10-0 tie. It was a 10-0 Tyrese Maxey run that sealed the game and stole it for the Philadelphia 76ers. They didn't have that in years past. They didn't have like that consistent third option. I mean, yeah, they had Jimmy Butler that one. I mean, they had a Jimmy Butler year. They had the Ben Simmons stuff, but they didn't have that third guy. It was Tobias Harris. But now they drafted Tyrese Maxey, and building from within, creating your own star from like within the system. You don't have to trade for one because you have one right there, and he's been absolutely fantastic. Harden again has had a tough series just because like he hasn't really like found his flow, and also that ejection, which I will ask you about later. But but at the end of the day, the 76ers are playing the way they are without like Embiid playing at his peak because the other guys are stepping up, and that is like what is going to be key for them going forward as well, because it's inevitable it's going to be a Celtics 76er second round. It is absolutely inevitable at this point.
Yeah.
Are they going to be able to outmatch the Celtics like depth in terms of scoring? Because we've seen, like we mentioned, the Derek White nights. We still haven't seen like a crazy Al Horford, Marcus Smart performance. They haven't even brought Grant Williams yet. We know that those guys are able to have those massive games, and that means the 76ers are going to have to match it some way or another. They have the third star on Tyrese Maxey to get the points up, and now that Tobias Harris is also like excelling in that fourth role. This team is looking scary, and although again it's against the Brooklyn Nets, but you have to admit that they have looked absolutely fantastic to start off. I do want to go back to that James Harden objection, though. I mean, it because I don't want to compare it. I will kind of compare it to the Draymond Green one because we are also going to get into that when we get into the over to the West.
Mm.
Was it justified? I thought it was like, yes, he did hit him below the belt. Yes, it was kind of that. But I mean, was it like anything? Do you think it was a bit of an overreaction from the refs, or is this kind of like a precedent they're trying to set now with the stuff that happened with Draymond earlier on this week?
So TV, I'm gonna answer your question with a question, and this will kind of weigh how we should react to a situation like this. Which one do you think was more egregious, James Harden's situation or Joel Embiid kick Claxton? Because that's what it was.
Yeah, I mean the only difference is that Harden made target. he hit the target.
Yeah.
Embiid, honestly, I thought Embiid's was worse because the intent was there.
That's what I'm saying. You see what I mean? So that, and I'm glad you answered it that way. The intent. I think that's the great thing about it, because if you also look back at it, it was called only it was only called that flagrant one.
Yeah.
I think when you look at it that way, you almost look at it more like, wow, if James's got called, Joel's definitely should have off the rip. So if you look at it as from the perspective of like, okay, so if only one of those calls could have been made, which one do you think would have been more of quote unquote the right call? I think it would have been the Joel Embiid one. Yet that's the one. That's the one that I think was under. I can't even say underappreciated. I don't think it was focused on enough in terms of not only the impact of that. Not that it was a ton left going on in terms of the game, but
yeah.
I think when you look at the circumstances of that, if you talk about setting precedents, I think that if you had to distinguish the difference between one and the other, Joel Embiid's was quote unquote more egregious.
Yes.
And so, something to keep an eye on. I'm gonna be real with you. Something worth kind of keep an eye on.
Yeah, I also think that like the time of the game is like really did play into part of it, because Embiid's thing like happened, I swear, in the first like 2 or 3 minutes of the game, like when like Claxton started to step over
That's
him.
what I'm saying. Like, it wasn't too much going on to the game to the point that I feel like it was anything that would have been it would have been a big separator, because Joel Embiid wouldn't have been on the floor anymore, obviously. But there was nothing in the flow of the game that said like, oh, this is about to escalate. And so the fact that they even got to that point.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? The fact that they got to that point, if they had pulled the ejection, maybe at that point you give Brooklyn life, but you're also taking the possible MVP off the floor for basically the entirety of the game.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I mean, again, the only difference is really he made contact, and it was accidental. He didn't mean to swing the elbow, but of course he wasn't aiming there. But at the end of the day, it kind of happened, and he wasn't very happy about it after the game. He completely went off on the refs. Wouldn't be surprised if there was a fine after that.
There will be if it has
100%. But at the end of the day, the 76ers still were able to get the job done, as they have been doing the entire series. Tyrese Maxey is fantastic. Should be done probably the next game. Let's be completely honest. Should be done. If the 76ers don't pull another 76ers and play with their food again.
That's the question. So, TV, I want to ask you this, though, because we didn't do this for the Atlanta Hawks series, but I think for the Nets series, it's probably a more interesting conversation.
Yeah.
Especially because I think the series is almost over.
Yeah.
I think the Hawks series, there's still a potential, like this could go to game 5 type of thing, because, Trey might have a game or something like that. But I think the Nets Sixers series is almost over. So let me ask you this. What do you think, if you're the Nets front office, what is your biggest takeaway, positive or negative, from a series like this, considering the way it's going, but also understanding the makeup of your team? Like, what would you say should be like the biggest takeaway, positive or negative, if you look at the way that this series is went, if you're a Nets fan / somebody in the front office that has to kind of address this team in the offseason?
I think that you have the potential to kind of go either way with this team. I think, like, in terms of, yes, you have some draft picks, but you also have some like key players that you can have like going forward could become foundational pieces, such as Nick Claxton, Mikal Bridges, and stuff like that. Or you can even take it the other way and just completely strip the whole thing down. Mikal Bridges has shown this year that he is more than just the fourth best player on a championship contender. He could be more than that. I think that's what he's shown this year. And a bunch of these other guys, these are some like valuable role players that other teams could look at. I think it's been like a showcase for people like Cam Johnson, who's had a couple of big games in this series, Mikal Bridges. And I just think that they like are find their identity again, and just being able to find like a fun basketball team that like not just Brooklyn fans can enjoy, but just like other fans of the league can enjoy as well. It's a way to it's a reset. It's definitely a reset. But now that you know like what you have on your team, you can make decisions in terms of what you do with your cap space, what you could do with your draft capital. Do you want to go with a full down rebuild? Do you want to maybe potentially like get competitive and like trade away some of like the excess role players for like higher quality starters and stuff like that? I think there's different ways you can go about this. And I think that either way this year, the fact that they were still able to maintain the seed has just been a very like positive way, a positive season for them, especially with all the mess that was going on before the season. So I think at the end of the day, I think Brooklyn fans and also the Brooklyn front office. I mean, it's against possibly the MVP. You couldn't expect the series to go long, especially with how good the 76ers have been played this year. I think it's still somewhat of a success, somewhat salvageable from especially what earlier looked like.
So I want to piggyback off of something that you said because I feel like what you said is actually the biggest takeaway that I would say, which is this team is fun now.
Yeah.
It's fun now, TV. I made a TikTok forever ago, back when all the Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving stuff was at the peak, right? And it was titled "Make the Nets Fun Again," right? And it was the idea that they once upon a time had a culture based off of internal development, togetherness, and a style that was not necessarily traditional in any shape or form because it was not built off of the back of a lead superstar with supporting role players. It was built almost kind of in a similar way to like that all-star Atlanta Hawks team once upon a time. Now, not nearly as talented, I would say, across the board, but I think there was a certain level of versatility and a certain level of togetherness in terms of that team that made up for the fact that they were not as talented as teams that have quote-unquote superstars as their lead guys, right? So I think there's a lot of things that you can look at from this team, with Mikal Bridges being a legitimate pillar for this squad in terms of being the backbone of that, and saying, okay, for the first time in probably like a year and a half, 2 years probably, this team is finally bearable in terms of they're fun to watch, but they're also fun to follow, right? I think that's how I look at them now is, yes, this Philly series is not necessarily going as you would like, but it's a series that we kind of understood going into it. But what you can say about it is this team is going to be competitive. They have legitimate pieces that are going to stick. I think they should really consider paying Cam Johnson, who is a guy who I think is really playing himself into a contract, if not with the Nets, then with somebody, with the way he played so far, even with the way the series is going. And they need to understand, at TV, you can piggyback off this wherever you want to, but I think the Nets need to take the makeup of this team and understand that they're getting a second chance at life again. So this is a third chance, really.
Yeah.
The idea of, okay, look, you've got the super team. You saw that it wasn't the greatest thing in the world. It wasn't as rosy on the other side as you would have hoped. You were able to come out of dismantling a super team and create a fun environment team that was competitive and still put themselves in a position to make the postseason. It is a formula that for a team that is not necessarily a small market team, but is a team nonetheless that is not necessarily known for landing the big guys outside of Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving. It's kind of a very unprecedented set of circumstances.
Yeah.
Right? I just hope that they understand with the way that this season went and the way that their postseason is going in terms of some of the things they're seeing develop, that they understand that just this might be the culture that they need to rock with if they're going to be a team that sustains any kind of real success. I hope that's what happens.
Yeah. Two times they tried making the super team. 2 times they completely fall flat on their face.
Third chance at life.
They do have a third chance here. And I think that at least at this point, especially with the coach Jacques Vaughn is, and the way that he like has been able to get kind of like good production from like a lot of like the exterior guys as well, being able to be like a player's coach type of thing. When you have that type of culture there, then it would be like, then that's the type of culture maybe other players want to come join. That's maybe this is the type of way you're going to go about it. Maybe not sort of the super team route because, like you mentioned, it just hasn't really worked out. This is the type of route that they should be going to, and I think hopefully, I hope that like that if they whether they tear it down or not, they kind of try to keep this culture and not try and be like, okay, when's the next super team that we could try and build? What's the next guy like next like disgruntled star or whatever? Try to build from within. They haven't done that in forever. It feels like this is their chance to. This is 100% their chance to.
Yeah.
Final series out in the East that we're gonna be discussing is probably honestly, at least like the first three series. Not like yes, the Bucks has been competitive, but also it's just kind of like I know, just a bit harder to watch. Now this is a series that's been pretty fun, but also there hasn't really been a close game yet. Cavs versus Knicks.
Yeah.
Cavs versus Knicks we're gonna be talking about finally, and it's the 4-5 matchup. The series is tied 1-1. Darius Garland absolutely nuts in that second game, which were able to lead the Cavs to victory, and in the first game, the Knicks absolutely been just been able to take over. Jalen Brunson had a pretty good game, 27 points. Jay, your biggest takeaway from this series so far?
I'm looking for Evan Mobley, TV. I'm looking for Evan Mobley. I'm trying to tell you, I said it before the series. I think that he's going to be a big time difference maker, and I think you can see it a little bit. I saw it a little bit in game one. He's trying to get aggressive. I need him to finish, though. One of the biggest things I saw him kind of struggle with, especially in game one, is he's kind of struggling to finish around the basket. I know Mitchell Robinson is in there. I know they got some bodies to rock around when it comes to being able to protect the paint. They're one of the better interior defenses in the entire NBA in terms of shot blocking and more so just, contesting at the rim. But I need Evan Mobley to lock in. I think at the end of the day, Donovan Mitchell is going to be him. I think DG having the kind of game he had, what was it, 23, 24 points in a quarter or a half or something like that? I think it was in a half.
Yeah, 26 and a half, yeah.
Yeah, 26 and a half. Like he snapped. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's something that I think has only been done by 2 or 3 other Cavs players in their franchise history.
Yeah.
Big time stuff to be dropping that kind of those kind of numbers in a half where they definitely needed it, by the way.
Mm-hmm,
but my big thing is I think DG kind of said it after the game that he had in game 2. I just think if their young guys would be a little bit more aggressive, it would change the Cavaliers' entire dynamic. We know who they are defensively, especially on the interior. We know who they are defensively. But if these guys will engage on the offensive end and be as aggressive as I think Donovan Mitchell has been, for example, I think that this team could be so scary because their defense is so good that if their offense could remotely match that on a night-to-night basis, it's up. Like they could really be a scary dark horse in this entire tourney. But we saw life from DG in terms of being a little bit more aggressive in game 2. TV, my biggest takeaway is I want the Evan Mobley game.
Yes.
I don't want to go as far as say I need, because I think that this could still be a competitive series without Evan Mobley snapping.
Yeah.
But I think for us to validate what we thought about the Cleveland Cavaliers coming into this year when they acquired Donovan Mitchell as like that guy that might help them like leap into another stratosphere, I think that's still built off of us seeing Evan Mobley as the guy that we thought he was going to develop into in year 2. And I think he's gotten better in year 2. But a series like this, man, where I don't see anybody on the interior for the Knicks that I feel like should be able to strap down Evan Mobley, if he's aggressive enough, I think this could be a really good time for him to announce his name.
Yeah, no, 100%. And what I've liked so far, at least from him this series, is that the shot numbers are up. The shot numbers are up. He does have to finish, but the shot numbers are up, and they need that because Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, they have the background lockdown.
Facts.
But the interior, there really isn't that interior presence on the Cavs, especially now that there's no more Kevin Love to even like kind of like remotely give that. Yeah. Who's going to be that guy to step up in the interior? Jared Allen's just a lob guy. We know what he brings in terms of like the rebounding, the blocks, all that sort of stuff. Evan Mobley is the guy who they got at the number 3 pick to not only be a generational defender, but show some Tim Duncan qualities on the offensive end as well. He has the ability. We've seen it in spurts. We've seen it in games in the past that he does have an offensive game to him. He just needs to be aggressive enough. And I think also too, now because especially now that basically like Mitchell Robinson, Jared Allen like basically just have to like deal with each other, especially on the inside. Julius Randle is hobbled. And I'm not saying like go out an injury or whatever, but man, Evan Mobley, if you see something like that, I mean, he's not already the greatest defender in the world. There should be something where you take advantage of and see this sort of as a mini mismatch and kind of go at him. This is like where I think like even like what's it called? Donovan Mitchell said in the past, we are begging him to shoot. We are begging Evan Mobley to shoot. He's like this guy's like probably one of the most humble guys in the league, one of the most like guys like who's like one of the better team players. We know his ability. His ability just needs to show through for this Cleveland Cavalier team. And I think if he's able to do that on a consistent basis, then this series is completely different. This is definitely a series that can tip to the Cavs' way. But we can't discount what the Knicks have been doing. The Randalls had a pretty good has been pretty good this series. Brunson has been that point guard steady point guard that they've been asking for, although they did get absolutely slapped in game 2. but they've shown in this first game that when they can out-grit the Cavs, which is kind of the Knicks' MO at this point this year, especially as a Tom Thibodeau team, if they can out-grit the Cavs, they can win the series. Jalen Brunson can match the production of Darius Garland. Randall can have a pretty good game as the number 2 guy. They just have to really just know like who that third guy is. Man, I was hoping RJ Barrett's going to show us a bit of something. He's still showing us a bunch of nothing right now. But if they can able to get that third consistent guy, whether it's quickly, whether it's Josh Hart, potentially someone like Quentin Grimes who can have a pretty good game, if they can get that consistent third guy, because really we don't know who that third guy is for the Cavs too. I mean, it was Caris LeVert last game who scored 24 points, but I think what really comes down to it is like we know what the 2 guys on each team is going to provide for both the Cavs and the Knicks: Randall, Brunson, Mitchell, Garland. Whoever that third guy is going to step up is going to be the difference in each of these games. First game, it was Josh Hart. Second game, it was Caris LeVert. If they're able, whoever has the better third guy in that game, I think is going to be a very key piece to them to winning this, to win a certain game, to win the series. It's just whoever could be more consistent on that end for either one of these teams, and they just have to kind of find out on a game-to-game basis because we don't know really who it's going to be.
Yeah, and I mean, one other thing that I kind of have as a takeaway is more like a Knicks thing, since we're kind of transitioning on that side too. Don't sleep on the fact that Tom Thibodeau is kind of like showing like signs of adjustment. Like he's showing signs of growth. Like this is a guy who's so used to running his starters into the ground 48 minutes through the wire.
Mm-hmm.
In the postseason, he's been rocking with the depth that he has. Like you got to put some respect on it.
They're going 10 deep.
That's what I'm saying. Consider when you look at it, especially when you consider the postseason and what kind of setting it is, this is typically when the rotation gets narrowed down, not necessarily expanded, or you keep it at the typical 10-man rotation that you run out during the regular season. But instead, he's kind of doing something that's both unconventional, not just for him, but again, unconventional for playoff style basketball by running 10 deep in the postseason. But I think that's a positive sign of growth that he now is starting to understand that he has to rock with the guys who brought him there, and not riding with the guys, the first 7 dudes on the roster that you feel the most comfortable in, especially in a series like this one where I think that matchups are not necessarily linear. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think the Donovan Mitchell versus Jalen Brunson is just Donovan Mitchell by a landslide. That's not how this series has looked. I think that DG is obviously has the upper hand in terms of if you want to combine the backcourt. But I think as long as Evan Mobley is not finishing the way he is, or not playing as well as I think he could be in terms of finishing around the rim and stuff like that, the Knicks have kept it pretty even in the front court with Julius Randle, of course, hobbled now, but in terms of keeping things within distance, this series is played pretty even. So the fact that they're utilizing their depth, it's kind of a game breaker for them that I think as this series goes deeper, which I think it's going to go 6 or 7, that depth could posed to be a real asset for the Knicks if they're able to make this series go the distance. If this series goes 6-7 like I think it could, this utilization of their depth could be a big story plot come game 6 when we're looking at who has enough in the tank to close the deal.
Yeah, no, 100%. Because honestly, even looking at the Cavs rotation, going past Chetty Osman, who's really going to be giving you consistent, like, good ball there? Even like Ricky Rubio, who they brought back this year, he hasn't been that guy that he was pre-injury. So the Knicks have the depth advantage, and honestly, I'm super glad, like you mentioned, that Tom Thibodeau is using the depth of his team, because that is like a super key element to this team that's been like working for them throughout this entire season. If the Knicks can match or like kind of like dominate the bench battle, this is what's going to make the series really interesting, and that's something to look for, especially for tonight's game as well. As it's at the time we're recording, of course. So, but like, if it's something to definitely look at, if the Knicks can win the bench battle and their starters can go almost tick for tack offensively with the duo of Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, it's going to be a very interesting series. And they did that in Game 1. Is it possible they could do it for like 3 more wins? Is that possible? We're gonna have to wait and see, because, man, they're going back to MSG. That place is about to be popping, especially with Donovan Mitchell coming into town. That should be very, very fun. Honestly, this has the potential to still be a really good series, and I'm excited to see what all transpires when they go back to MSG. We are moving away from the East and moving over to the West now. And we're starting with the 1-8 matchup. We have the Denver Nuggets taking on the Minnesota Timberwolves, where the Nuggets are up 2-0 in this series. They absolutely dominated the first game. The second game, the Timberwolves made a crazy good comeback, but it was just a little too late. The Nuggets offense was just too good. Ooh, that battle between Jamal Murray and Anthony Edwards in that game was filthy. Probably one of the better moments of the playoffs. But Jay, what is your takeaway from this series so far?
I think what you just mentioned with that battle is huge, but TV, my question, and it's gotta easily be the question of the series: where the hell is Cat? Where the hell is Cat? 21 points in 2 games is insane.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm pulling up the stuff now. Karl Anthony Towns has more rebounds in 2 games than he does points over those 2 games. It's 21-22.
Gobert is outscoring Towns, my guy.
Dude. Okay, let me double check this. He's shooting 8 for 27 through 2 games of this series. TV, I hate to be this guy, but you're an NBA head, so I know you remember this. Do you remember for 3 years straight that NBA survey would come out and the question was, who is the player in the league that you would want to build your franchise around? And the answer 3 years running was Karl Anthony Towns. And then stuff like this happens, and it makes me wonder where that belief comes from. Because for me, this dude tends to do this in any situation where there's any kind of real stakes on the line. This goes all the way back to the infamous Minnesota versus Denver game on the line play-in that wasn't a play-in, where Jimmy Butler took over to send them to the playoffs, and Denver just barely missed it. This goes all the way back to that, my guy, in the sense that when the time comes for Karl Anthony Towns to step into the bright lights and show out, he does this.
Yeah, he is supposed to be their number 1A or 1B. I mean, like, at this point, I think we've accepted the fact that Anthony Edwards is the 1A is the number 1 option on this team. He has showed, at least, especially in these last 2 playoffs, that he has been that guy.
Yeah.
But Towns, man, in three playoffs at this point, this is his 3rd time being in the playoffs. 17 points a game, 11 rebounds, 80% from the free throw line, 35% from 3, 44% from the free throw line as a center. Sorry, not the free throw line. 44% from the field as a center. He's
Ridiculous.
scoring 30% from the field as in the series. Like Towns, man. I mean, I do remember that survey. I 100% do remember that survey. And
Yeah.
was I of the belief of that? No, but also I saw where they were coming from. This He was supposed to be the number one guy for this team. He was supposed to be the guy to this generational center who could do it all on the offensive end.
Yeah.
And when it comes to playoff time, he hasn't been showing up. And I think Edwards has been their guy these last 2 years when it comes to playoff basketball. That's why the conversation has switched. Is Towns the number one guy? No, he is no longer the number one guy there. They should be building around Anthony Edwards.
Yeah.
Because Towns hasn't been able to show out in any of these playoff series so far. Hasn't been able to make his mark. And so far the series, man, I mean, yeah, he's has to deal with like a lot of different bodies thrown at him. But he's bigger than all of them. He's stronger than all of them. He has a big offensive repertoire that he can like go up that he has. But so far this series, man, he hasn't been able to show it, and that's very unfortunate for this Timberwolves team because they've been desperately needing it. I mean, if we had a solid cat game, even a solid cat game in the last game, they probably would have won that game.
Yeah.
They probably would have won it, and they just weren't able to get it. Wasted a 41-point Anthony Edwards night. That is the biggest takeaway for the series too, man. Where is Cat? Where has this guy been? Because the Denver Nuggets, I don't think they've been playing their best basketball yet so far. I mean, yeah, Jamal Murray's had a big game. Jokic hasn't really like dominated so far yet, but their depth has been good. The Timberwolves have had openings, and they're facing like a not perfect Denver Nuggets team so far. But it's just, man, when you're like number one option isn't like holding up in the end of the bargain, it's tough to see how they're going to be able to even like win a game in this series.
Yeah, and it goes back to last series, or I guess last season's series against Memphis. And what did we keep saying throughout that entire series? It felt like Minnesota just didn't know how to close. Right. That was that was the big difference between them beating Memphis in round one was the fact that there were games. You just mentioned it in terms of this Denver series. It seems like there were openings. It seems even in this series, there are open opportunities for them to snatch this series in their favor. You mentioned it beforehand. Jokic has not even really imprinted himself on this series, really. Right.
Yeah.
Yet here we are talking about the Anthony Edwards, Jamal Murray 1v1, right?
Yeah.
And we got to give a lot of credit to Jamal Murray because one thing that is very interesting about him is that he thrives in these duels against other opposing guards in the backcourt, which I think is huge for where the Western Conference is because the Western Conference is very guard heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Elite guards, by the way, in terms of just being this isn't just a deep group. These guys are crazy talented. I think the fact that you can look at a guy who is on a fringe all-star level, but has the ability to go tit for tat with these guys that are already at that all-star caliber, if not MVP caliber level, I think is a huge wild card that can also count as a feather in the cap for Denver and that in their back pocket, right?
Yeah.
But I can't look at this series and feel any type of way about Denver right now because I keep asking myself, where is Karl Anthony Towns? And TV, the big thing too is maybe this is projecting a little bit. So I'll be honest. This is me. This is a certain level of bias that's being kicked in as well when I ask this question. But if you look at this year and you look at last year, you do factor in the amount of time Karl Anthony Towns has missed over the last 2 to 3 seasons as well. TV, I'm starting to really wonder where Cat ranks amongst the best bigs in the league.
It's a difficult conversation, and for sure. I mean, like for the longest time, he was number 3.
Yeah,
and I still think he is number 3. I think comfortably number 3. I still think he's probably there, but there's definitely questions to be had. I mean, you can make a case for Sabonis. You can make a case for Bam Adebayo.
AD
just because
AD
is still in the mix as well, 100%. Actually, no, AD is 100% above Towns in my opinion. But I know what you mean. But at the end of the day, like Towns has to show like he needs to make his imprint in a series, especially where the interior presence for the Nuggets is just like it's not there compared to other teams that he's going to be able to face in the West.
Yeah.
These are the series he should be dominating. He should be showing that Nikola Jokic isn't that much of a defensive threat. Aaron Gordon should not be able to handle me in the post, but
Right.
he's getting worked right now on the defensive end, and he's just like not getting anything going. Maybe that changes when they go back to Minnesota. Hopefully it does. Maybe like back home, it definitely like could definitely like improve his chances there. But man, he has to show us something. And going back to the Jamal Murray part, by the way, he is the key for them if they want to win a championship, because we know what Jokic is going to give on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah.
If we get bubble Jamal Murray for like the entirety of the playoffs, that's when people start to take Denver like legitimately. They start to take them seriously. He's done it for this first game, and he outdueled Anthony Edwards. Oh, they gave me some great memories from that series against Donovan Mitchell. Man, that was definitely a fun time to be watching basketball. If he could do that on a regular basis, not like 40 points, obviously, but like be an elite scorer, a near 30-point per game scorer, that's when the Nuggets become that great of a contender. And I think with there's so many being question marks in the West, this is the year to do so. And if you can get that type of production from Jamal Murray, it could be something special there in Denver this year.
Yeah, I definitely agree that he definitely unlocks where where the Nuggets can be, like where how we view them. It's weird, so kind of like rock with me for a second, but I think Jokic's dominance and Giannis's dominance are so comparable. And what I mean by that is I feel like they both have been so dominant in such a consistent way that we're almost unimpressed by it.
Mm-hmm.
And so to this point, when you're unimpressed, it also means that it's become precedent. It's become expectation now, right?
Yeah.
So then if that's the case, you almost have him as the linchpin to say, okay, Jokic is going to do da 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 da, right?
Mm-hmm.
So who's the guy that blows the top off the Nuggets that makes you think, okay, well, when Jokic does Jokic, they're a playoff team that's at least going to be competitive in the first and maybe second round. So who's the guy who blows the lid off that says now they're a championship contender? Oddly enough, I think Jamal Murray fits that bill. And despite the fact that we don't discuss him in the all-star range, I think he has an all-star level ceiling that comes out in moments like these, which takes me back to the Karl Anthony Towns thing. TV, we just cannot be having a first round series where we're asking how much better would this team be if they just had Nas Reed. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No offense to my man Nas Reed. I think he deserves to get paid this summer. First of all, that's out the way. But we should not be in a situation in a series like this one where nobody has really taken reins of the series. Yes, the Nuggets are up 2-0. But they haven't really like stomped Minnesota into making you think like, oh yeah, they're about to clear Minnesota in this series. They haven't shown you that yet. So for us to be looking at this series and saying, oh man, would things be different if they just had Nas Reed back to give a little bit more production with Cat playing this way?
Yeah.
That's not good, man. It's just not it's not good for the upside of this team moving forward. And maybe this is a little crazy too, but again, I'm a lot lower on Karl Anthony Towns these days, but kind of similar to what I mentioned with the Brooklyn Nets, where I was like, okay, what's one of your biggest takeaways from a front office standpoint coming away from a series like this, where you have to have a main talking point in terms of, building this team moving forward in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
You might got to look at Cat, bro.
It's definitely
it's a tough combo, but I think they got to think about it.
It's definitely a conversation to be had. It's going to be a conversation to be had, and that's in the offseason, especially if they go down the way that we project them to go down with the Denver Nuggets, absolutely dismantling them, which they have done so far this series. There's definitely going to be some tough conversations, especially because these are your two top guys. You already know what you're getting. Anthony Edwards, he's shown that he's a playoff performer these past 2 years. Yeah. Cat, on the other hand, has not been able to show that, and those conversations are going to be tough, especially being touted as one of the best young centers in the league. but it has a conversation that's going to be happening in the near future, especially if he continues to play this sort of level.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next series, going to the 2-7 matchup over in the West, we have the Memphis Grizzlies going up against the Los Angeles Lakers. And man, another injury really did hurt the series, man. Ja Morant going down in game 1 with a strain. They said a sprained hand. He said like the pain level was at level 10 and stuff like that. He definitely did not feel good after that game. But the series started 1-1. Xavier Tillman absolutely balled out in that second game, by the way. He was absolutely fantastic. But man, the Grizzlies have shown this year and last year that even without Ja Morant, that next man up mentality, the collective group that the collective score that they've been able to do is effective, and the Lakers saw that firsthand in game 2. But Jay, in terms of the series as a whole, what has been your biggest takeaway?
TV, I have two things that both operate in two totally different directions. The first one is game 2 is the reason why Ja Morant will never win an MVP. I'm so serious.
Yeah.
And I'm not disrespecting him. I'm trying to contextualize how insanely talented his team really is. Like, Xavier Tillman came in. This is a series where Brandon Clark and Steven Adams are very much missed. Let's be real.
Yeah,
Let's be real. As internal presences, especially against a guy like Anthony Davis and Rui Hachimura, who's scarily kind of been very effective. And Austin Reeves is another guy that's been looking to really put some pressure on the rim. That's not even factoring in, LeBron James, right?
Yeah.
But this is a series where guys like Brandon Clark and Steven Adams are really missed. And so for Xavier Tillman to come in, and he did it more offensively, right? Which was kind of the weird thing of all situations. Xavier Tillman being one of their leading, I think he was their leading scorer, was kind of insane considering that's not really the role he serves for their team. Mm-hmm. But I think it just goes to show you that when these guys are asked to step up in a role that they're not usually thrusted into, they are not afraid of that moment, and they actually kind of tend to see it as more of an opportunity than them kind of filling in. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think that it shows. This showed in the series against Golden State last year, where they stole a win when we basically thought the series was going to be over when Ja got hurt then. And I think that it showed in game 2 as well. Here's my flip side to that actually is in the Lakers' favor. TV, I told you in the preview that it seemed like everything was pointing Lakers' luck.
Yeah.
Dude, basically going into like 2 weeks after the trade deadline, it seemed like this team was starting to kind of get it together. Obviously, they're competent because their roster makes sense for the first time, and they're spiraling in this positive direction where it seemed like things was pushing them to like, wow, they might actually make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And not only did they make the playoffs, they're the dang 7th seed now, which was something that definitely positioned them much better than where we thought they were going to be. Remember, this is the same team that we thought was going to mess around and accidentally give New Orleans Victor Wembanyama, and New Orleans with a worse record than them, right?
Yeah.
Now, they get into a series where we're already a little iffy about it matchup-wise in terms of who you feel confident in coming out of it. And now Ja Morant is injured. TV, the Lakers' luck continues, bro. And I'm not saying that the Memphis Grizzlies are in the water because Ja Morant could obviously return to the series as well. Thankfully, this injury happened a lot earlier in the series, and it's not something that's too serious to the point of like we haven't heard anything that sounds like he's going to miss significant time, at least not yet. Mm-hmm. But this opens yet another window. I'm going to say window, maybe not the door, but it opens a window for the Lakers that when you come into the situation, you didn't necessarily think they were going to have. So once again, here are the Lakers positioned again to take something that they probably don't deserve. Like, bro, I don't like. I'm kind of stumbling over my words because of the fact that it's just like this Lakers team has been a conundrum all season long, and they keep catching break after break after break, as if this team doesn't have 2 of the top 10 players in the NBA on their roster, like they need any help. Their issues were from roster construction standpoints. Now their roster makes sense, and they're back to having the top two guys or to having their top two guys up and clicking again.
Yeah.
Everything's beating Lakers, bro, and it feels weird because maybe I don't know, man. It feels weird.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a thing though. I mean, yeah, things have gone the Lakers' way, but even still, even to this point, I feel like the Lakers really haven't taken full advantage of it. I mean, Anthony Davis has not like we talked. I mean, like obviously, Cat has been like really bad for the Timberwolves. Anthony Davis has not been the superstar of the series that they've been asking for. This team no longer has Brandon Clark and Steven Adams, and yes, he is doing well in terms of rebounding, but he should be doing his should be absolutely dominating that front line, which is extremely thin. Whether it's Jaren Jackson Jr., who's more of a help defender, not more of a one-on-one guy, or whether you're an Xavier Tillman, you should not be scoring 13 points, 9 rebounds, getting blocked by John Conchar twice.
Yeah.
Not once.
That's not great.
Twice. This should not be happening to one of the best big men in basketball. LeBron, I could say LeBron, Rui Hachimura, and to a certain extent, Austin Reeves has been more impactful in this series so far, more than Anthony Davis. And that shouldn't be a conversation that we're having right now. LeBron, sure. LeBron is LeBron. But Rui Hachimura and Austin Reeves should not be in the conversation for second best player so far in the series. True. And Rui Hachimura has definitely been the second best player so far. So on the Lakers side of things, yes, they've been catching breaks, but they're also showing why this team has shouldn't be heavily favored, heavily.
They don't deserve it, TV. You could say it. It's okay, bro. The Lakers do not deserve this, and yet this is the position they are in. They are staring at a wounded Memphis Grizzlies team that might be able to get away with this whole Ja Morant out thing for a game. But if this ends up being extensive, we both know that this series can get very muddy if Ja Morant misses extensive time because of the fact that the Lakers are still, at the end of the day, whether we like it or not, talented enough to win a series against this team.
Yeah, that's the thing. They should be. The thing is, a lot of the Lakers thing, a lot of the Lakers narrative this year is that they should be doing this. They should be higher at this point. And again, it's showing on the series that they really should have played a lot better performance, especially in that game too. But flipping over to the Grizzlies side, I mean, like I mentioned, these last 2 years, especially, I mean, remember the narrative last year is the Grizzlies buried without Ja. They were 23-9 without Ja Morant on their team. People are having that conversation again this year. They're I mentioned this when I was talking about Taylor Jenkins for potentially being coach of the year. He's just so good at just getting these guys to come up and play every single night, whoever it is to step up. And once again, it is flowing to fruition. They had 6 guys scoring 13 points or more in the last game. That was absolutely key to their victory. But man, that narrative around Ja, the Grizzlies not needing Ja to win series, get out of here. I mean, right. What are your thoughts on this? People are saying, especially one particular man, Colin Cowherd, saying this Grizzlies team is better without Ja Morant. No, Jay. I mean, please, enlighten the situation.
I mean, let's be real, dude. At the end of the day, he raises their ceiling. He raises their floor, right? In terms of what they're able to do and what he maximizes. I think we can't. Colin Cowherd is the same dude that also says that in series, especially when you talk about making championship runs, sometimes most of the time, it's the dudes, right, who end up elevating you to championship level status. Ja Morant is one of those dudes in terms of what he brings to the table. Memphis is a team, I think, with the depth that they have, could they still be a sub 40? Could they still be like a 40-42 win team without Ja Morant? I think so. I think there's a world where with the kind of depth they have and the kind of energy they play with, and the way just the fact that Taylor Jenkins is a great coach, I think they could still win somewhere between 38 and 43 games without Ja Morant.
Yeah.
Do you feel? But here's the thing. Do you feel like they're a championship caliber contender when they're doing that? And I think the answer is no. When you have a guy like Ja Morant on your team, if you win 38 to 43 games, but you have that guy on your team, I think you feel a lot differently about their chances of actually making a run at the championship. And that's the difference. I think as a regular, this again, perfect point to talk to kind of back up what I said earlier. From a regular season perspective, I think that's why Ja Morant will never win an MVP.
Yeah.
Because from a regular season perspective, I think that his supporting cast is always going to be considered too good for Ja to be considered most valuable. But I think where his value is at its most, I guess, right,
Yeah.
is in a postseason setting when you need to call upon that dude, where
Yeah.
when it is time to take over, that is the guy you lean to. Because at the end of the
Yeah.
day, that is where things go in the postseason. There's a point in the series, whether it's game 4, 5, 6, 7, when things start to get tighter, that dude or just the presence of that guy changes the dynamic of your team because it gives you a belief, or if you do not have that guy, institutes a lack of belief in your ability, in your team's ability to do what needs to be done, because of the fact that you do or do not have that kind of talent on the roster. So I think it's cute to try to say that when you see them win a game that they quote unquote should not win, in a series where we're already feeling kind of weird about where they stand against the Lakers. But at the end of the day, if you just watch the game, you understand that Ja Morant gives them something different that makes them much more dangerous in a setting that we're in now. For regular season, sure, they can get away with murder. But in the postseason, let's not get crazy.
Yeah. To keep the short sweet, like it's fun to catch people off guard from time to time when you don't have John Moran and you can see Xavier Tillman have a 22 and 13 game. It's cute when you can have that. But when people start to figure it out, they start to to really yeah, they just start to really figure this out on a game to game basis. It's just not gonna it's just not gonna work out as much, and they need Ja back in the series to match up with the star power that the Lakers have up there with Anthony Davis and LeBron James. He is absolutely needed on this team. They need a lead guard that's able to take over games like Ja Morant can. And yes, the record shows that they don't need him, but we know when playoff basketball is, the stars come out to shine. That's when they are needed the most. Ja Morant is absolutely needs to get back in the series, especially in order to beat a two-headed monster like LeBron and Anthony Davis. Even though Anthony Davis, you gotta step up your game, bro. You gotta step up your game. We're gonna have to see how this goes. I don't know about you, Jay. Still think it could go either way, but yeah, it can go either way. I still think, right?
Yeah, I mean, we were nervous about the series beforehand. And I think if I remember the preview show correctly, I think we both went 7, but you went Memphis, I went Lakers.
Yeah,
It's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out now. That
hundred
injury
percent,
plays a big factor.
absolutely. Moving on to the next matchup there for the West, and we're going to the 3-6 matchup, and it's the Sacramento Kings, light the beam Sacramento, taking on the Golden State Warriors, and they are up 2-1. The Sacramento Kings, the script is forming, Jay. What has been your biggest takeaway from this series?
De'Aaron Fox is here. He's here, bro.
He's here, man.
Here.
He's here.
I think one of the biggest things, and I mean we've both been huge advocates for this, but we've seen this season in season out of just that young guard who, if he gets put on this stage and balls out, it completely changes the dynamic in terms of how national media views him in terms of the all-star range, right? But
Yeah.
also where he is viewed amongst his peers. I feel like, for example, De'Aaron Fox in this case, he's a guy who I think when you distinguish him versus Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, for a long time, I feel like there was a feeling, especially with the way that this season ended up turning out, that maybe Shea Gilgeous-Alexander is a better player than De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah.
And I still think there's a point to be made that maybe that's still the case. But I think when you look at the way this series has gone and how he's been able to go toe to toe with Stephen Curry, and the clutch stuff is sticking, which we talked
Yes.
about in the preview. Stuff like that becomes much more of a conversation now in terms of where De'Aaron Fox should be viewed in terms of who are the best point guards in the NBA. And I love that for him because I feel like it only takes one chance to be on this stage to completely rewrite the viewpoint of you and your career when you're on a team that's been as moribund as the Kings have been since he got there and before. So I'm very happy for De'Aaron Fox in this sense of being able to display this for himself because I think that this is something that's always been deep there inside of him. And I think he's kind of always been this caliber of a player, but has never actually had the supporting cast or the coach to truly unlock it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this year, and I think in this series, we're seeing that it's coming to fruition. And I'm nervous for Golden State. As a guy who picked Golden State at 7, I am nervous for this team. But TV, the notable stat of the day, the Golden State Warriors are 1-0 at home. I'm just saying, man. Look, if the trend sticks, they will lose in Game 7. But
if it does, yeah.
If it sticks, but this Game 5s are always crucial in series like these. But Game 5 is going to be huge for Dubs fans because if the Warriors, to me, Game 5 for the Warriors is win or go home. If they lose there, I think it's over. I think it's over because I think if Sacramento is 3-2 going into Game 6 with 2 chances to send you home with home court advantage in Game 7, the Warriors won't make it.
Yeah, it's definitely this Warriors team, especially in this. I mean, besides the last game, they played very well the last game in Game 3 back in is it Chase Center now? Yeah, it's called the Chase Center. Yeah, I had to catch myself out there, but they coming into this series. One of the biggest things, and I think you even mentioned this when you were trying to when you were convincing me that they're going to win the series. They've been here before. They know what it's all about. This Sacramento Kings team who hasn't been in the playoffs in 16, 17 years. The Warriors are battle tested. They know what it's like to go up against 7 matchups.
Yeah.
But why has the Kings been the one who looks like the more competent, the more ready, the more what's it called? Veteran team? Why are they the ones really showing up in this sense compared to the Golden State Warriors? I'm that's what's surprising me about the series, that the Kings, the ones who are supposed to be the young guys who don't have the playoff experience, they're the ones who are out showing the Golden State Warriors, who are supposed to be that. They're the ones who are supposed to be the ones showing their experience, showing their playoff history in this series. They just haven't been able to show that. And speaking of playoff history, the Warriors playoff history repeats once again with Draymond Green going with a suspension after doing, a prototypical Draymond Green type move, which we'll get into a little bit later. I'll ask you about that. But all props off to the Kings right now, man. The way that you mentioned that De'Aaron Fox story eerily reminds me of his former Kentucky teammate, or I don't know, I don't think they were teammates. Never mind. But I mean, they're former Kentucky alumni. Devin Booker, who did not make the playoffs for the first 4 or 5 years of his career. The Suns didn't make the playoffs since 2010.
Yeah.
Goes into his first playoffs, goes all the way to the finals, and shows why he is arguably the top 2 guard in the league.
Yeah.
Man, if De'Aaron Fox isn't having that type of moment right now, 29 points a game, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. He is having that type of moment here in this sort of playoffs, and you just love to see it from a guy who, again, doesn't get the national media attention, has always been on the edge of the All-Star conversation. Now you got to look at him and think, man, this guy is for real. He is a leader. He is someone that could take over games, especially late. People are seeing this now. and especially in those first two games in the Golden One Center there in Sacramento, where the Kings like arena was absolutely rocking. Him, and especially like his ability to kind of his energy being able to trickle down to other teammates has been absolutely key in this series, and it's showing. And the Kings have showed that they have just been more prepared than the Golden State Warriors for the series. And now that the Warriors are now playing a position where they haven't been in their dynasty forever, they've never been 0-2 down in a series. This is where they're gonna get tested more, man. This is where they have to get tested. That Draymond Green suspension was absolutely rough for them, but they were able to bounce back, especially due to a pretty dominant Steph Curry game, which we finally were able to see. 36 points, good Andrew Wiggins games, and as well. They need to show more of that home effort throughout the rest of the series. And we need Draymond Green to stop doing Draymond Green type things, man. I mean, like, what were your thoughts on that whole thing? Did you like think it was worthy of a suspension? What were your thoughts on Draymond Green basically using Domantas Sabonis as a launch pad to get back down the court?
I think it didn't look good. It definitely didn't look good. I also think you have to pair Draymond Green's history because we just are, subconsciously or otherwise. It was bound to happen. I hate to say it, but I feel like this team has been slowly imploding all year, and my confidence in them has kind of been based off of blind faith. I will admit that.
Yeah.
And occurrences like these are the ones that have to bring you back to earth and make you realize that what we saw this season is exactly what it looks like. Even the home versus road stand, 0-2 on the road, wins the first game when they get to Chase Center. It's one of those things where I think the Warriors are exactly who we've seen them as, not who we think they are. And that includes a guy like Draymond Green, who unfortunately, for everything that he comes with, Steve Kerr, I think, even said this in response to the transgressions that took place. Draymond Green is not a guy you can reel in. He's a guy who's going to do what he's going to do, and that's part of the reason that he's the heartbeat of their team, is because what he does is unconventional, for good or for bad. In this case, and in many other cases similar to these are some of the wild card moments, the bullets that you have to fight, that come with a guy that has so much to do with the infrastructure of not just the makeup of your team, but the backbone of the identity that's been built around it. So I think it was bound to happen. It's unfortunate that it kind of took place like this. And TV, I think, not to flake on my prediction from the preview too hard, but I do in a weird way think that stuff like this is a momentum killer to a point where I don't think the moment will cost them the series. Obviously, they survived in Game 3, which was big. I don't think it will cost them the series, but I think it's going to be a notable talking point if the Golden State Warriors do not come out of round one.
Yeah, it 100% is. And going back to the Draymond Green thing, I'll just say this: for all that he's done, like in like years past, the whole thing about him being a repeat offender, there's no benefit of the doubt when it comes to Draymond Green. There absolutely isn't. And if you build some sort of reputation over the last few years, maybe that'll change. No, that hasn't been able to change. This guy is the oldest guy on their team, I think, and he hasn't able to change his attitude. This guy literally punched Jordan Poole in the preseason. That tells you all you need to know about where Draymond Green is at this point in his career. He's just not going to change. He just isn't going to change. And again, like you said, for good or for bad, that is the heartbeat of the Warriors. He takes them up, but he also brings them down. Just look at the series with the Cavaliers in 2016. That suspension changed absolutely everything in that series.
Yeah.
That's what Draymond Green is. You just have to kind of accept him for who he is and his shortcomings. And that's what has happened here once again. Maybe it wasn't as bad as people were making it out to be, but the history shows that he's going to keep doing this, and you got to punish him somehow. That is the result of that. It's the reputation he's brought up. That's why the suspension stayed as is. But the Warriors, they still have a chance in the series. They have another game there at the Chase Center. If the Kings get that, it's over. It's absolutely over.
Raps.
It is wraps for the Golden State Warriors. Good job for the Kings, though. Absolutely fantastic job so far. Malik Monk had his big game. Sabonis had a good bounce back game there in game 2. And De'Aaron Fox, man, doing De'Aaron Fox type things. Love to see it on the national stage. Final series we're going to be talking about here is the 4-5 matchup over out west. And it has been the series between the Phoenix Suns and the LA Clippers, where the Phoenix Suns are 2-1 up after defeating the Clippers yesterday in terms at the time of recording, with no Kawhi Leonard in this game. But they still kept it close. Norman Powell, 42 points. Russell Westbrook, 30-point game. Jay, have the Phoenix Suns been kind of like not had their foot on the gas pedal fully? Have they not like stayed focused? I don't know. That's like, it just feels like they should be like in a lot better position in the series so far.
I think I agree with you, but I think this again goes back to the depth equalizer that the LA Clippers have. I think the other thing too is that's also kind of the interesting thing about top-heavy teams is that I don't think they have the ability to truly put you away in the ways that you would expect. I think they're the type of teams that if they get off to a very hot start, they're a team that can kind of humble you early. But when you talk about the idea of putting a team away, I don't necessarily think that Phoenix is built to hold off a team like LA, right? And so I think that's the thing that's giving the Clippers the puncher's chance, is the fact that they are a team that they're just like I think we said this in the preview, and I keep bringing the preview up because there were so many great conversations in regards to these series. The depth versus top heaviness of these two teams, the contrast of that, I think is the dichotomy that's making this series so interesting, right? Because you have a guy like Russell Westbrook, who's quote unquote the second option, especially with Paul George out. But I think they've got so much more versatility around him that it's helped to keep things interesting.
Yeah. It's definitely like so far, 100% has keep things interesting. I mean, Russell Westbrook has had a damn good series so far.
Right.
Like all things considered. I mean, yeah, he had a poor game 1 shooting wise, but man, those defensive plays he made at the end of the game against Devin Booker, against even at times Kevin Durant, massive, absolutely massive.
Yeah.
Then you had Kawhi Leonard playing extremely well, and even in the game without Kawhi Leonard, they still kept things interesting. Russell Westbrook, like I mentioned, Norman Powell combined for 72 points in that starting lineup. And the Suns really had a hard time just keeping the Clippers down, which has been honestly that's a very surprising factor, especially with the last game. Key factor for the Phoenix Suns, yes, Devin Booker has been amazing. Torrey Craig can't miss from 3, man. Torrey Craig.
True. Good point.
Torrey Craig so far in the series, I'm bringing up the stats here right now. He is 18 for 24 from 3. 18 for 24. That is 75. That's like what? 75%, I think. 75% from 3 so far in this series. He has 62% from 3 this series. But still, he has been absolutely fantastic. Someone who has just been a great release valve, because you know that Devin Booker is going to get to his shots. Chris Paul, Kevin Durant, DeAndre Ayton, they're all ahead of him in the pecking order. He's going to get open shots. And so far this series, he's been able to knock them down. And honestly, he has been a key, one of the X factors in the series in terms of when Phoenix cannot rely on those few guys, those star players in the court, he is able to just simmer things down and just hit a clutch shot or a big shot that kind of halts runs, be able to extend runs. That's what Torrey Craig has been able to do this series so far, and it's been very, very impressive. Combined with the fact that Kevin Durant also hasn't been taking a lot of shots, which has been kind of surprising on his behalf. But Devin Booker has been absolutely fantastic as well. I still think it's going to be a pretty long series, man. I still think it's going to go pretty long just because this Clippers team is just way too scrappy.
Yeah, and I mean, let me go back. Let me go back to the depth of conversation and try to like build upon that because I kind of struggled through that one a little bit, but I want to expound upon it. Looking at the depth chart right now, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys who have participated in all 3 games in this
Mm-hmm.
series, right? Obviously,
Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard went down. That would make 9.
Yeah.
Again, it kind of goes back to kind of similar to this is a very comparable series to the Cleveland versus New York series that we were talking about beforehand. The only difference I think is for both teams, there's the top end talent is significantly, maybe not significantly better, but overall better across the board for both teams involved as opposed to the Knicks versus Cleveland Cavaliers series. And that's what kind of makes the situations completely different in their own way. But I think this ability to utilize their depth is something that's been a good way for them to equalize. You mentioned Torrey Craig, though. That's where the role player element for Phoenix really comes in, is when there's a need to stop the bleeding, there seems to always be an unexpected occurrence. And lately it has been Torrey Craig shooting from beyond the arc. I feel comfortable with the Suns in this series. And I think that Kawhi Leonard has kind of now made it even more interesting than it was before.
Yeah.
But I'm interested to see if there's a Russell Westbrook game we're sleeping on. Like, I wonder if that 30 was a precursor or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm like giving Russ a little more credit than I should. But like, I just wonder. Russ has been oddly competent this series, and I don't mean that disrespectfully, but like, he has showed some very significant bright spots throughout this series that I think should not be underlooked.
He's been awesome. He's been absolutely awesome this series. And the fact that he's playing the way he is the reason why the Clippers are still in the series. As much as how good Kawhi is as a playoff performer, Russ being that reliable second guy, it still feels weird to say it, a reliable second guy at this point in his career, in this series especially, has been keeping them alive in the series and keeping them very, very competitive. Hopefully Kawhi comes back in the next game, though. I really do hope so, that he is able to come back and perform, because, man, there's already discussions around him being one of the, not talent wise, but like one of the most disappointing superstars in terms of him being like the amount of games that he's missed. And that's kind of like at least the narrative I've been seeing, especially on First Take. But they need him back in the series because he's shown so far that his production is able to keep him close with Russell Westbrook playing the way he is. And now that the benches and the rest of the role players are starting to really pick it up, it could become interesting, especially with the lack of depth that the Suns have right now, apart from Torrey Craig. So it's going to be very interesting to see. It's been a very fun series so far. Probably one of the most fun series to watch out of the entire playoffs for sure. And I just can't wait to see how the rest of this series does fold out. One more quick point before we move on. Chris Paul got his first win against Scott Foster, y'all.
That first dude win. Broke a 13-game streak, I think it was, right?
It was. He was 0-13 against Scott Foster in the playoffs, and he finally got that first win. Congrats to CP3, who's had a pretty solid series thus far. But yeah, those are all the series in the playoffs so far that we've had our thoughts on. Let us know down below what you guys think. We're definitely going to be following along as the playoffs go on and giving our thoughts over these next couple weeks. A couple more topics before we end the show. A few of the awards, I think half of the awards have been announced at this point, and we're going to be going through them pretty quickly here. Coach of the Year, Mike Brown. Jay, quick thoughts. I think it was an easy decision for both of us to go with Mike Brown here.
Yeah, I think it was big time that it was unanimous. I think that was pretty notable.
Yeah.
But other than that, I mean, that was my pick. I felt pretty comfortable with that. What he's been able to do with the Kings this year, I mean, it warranted at least top 2, bro. Like,
I mean, it was an easy decision, and I'm glad it was an unanimous vote as well. He 100% deserved that. Come Clutch Player of the Year, another Kings winner here in De'Aaron Fox. I thought, again, both of us thought this was pretty obvious.
Yeah, I mean, There was some notable names. I think DeMar DeRozan, Jalen Brunson were the other two like big ones.
Oh, Butler. No, Butler
Oh,
was
and
another
Jimmy
candidate.
Butler. Yeah, Jimmy Butler as well. But I mean, come on, bro. Like, let's be real. Like, I mean, you hate to pull the like, check the numbers game, but it's like, dude, like De'Aaron Fox. If you didn't think it before, like, have you seen the way this postseason has gone so far? Like,
Exactly.
it's only validating it, which is actually a good thing, all things considered.
Very, very nice, and it's validating it as well. These clutch games that he's had so far, followed by the Clutch Player of the Year award, just like went absolutely perfect in my opinion. And I think going forward, this award's going to be very stat based. I mean, he had by far the most clutch points in the league, the most 10-point fourth quarter games as well, and just some notable game winners. This was an easy decision to make a De'Aaron Fox. And unfortunately for you, this award didn't come last year because last year would have 100% been DeMar DeRozan.
Right, man, that would have been so cool. Because I mean, well, man, don't even get me started. Let's not talk about the Bulls today.
Yeah.
Never mind. I was gonna go into it, but I mean, man, we went from being one of the most clutch teams in the NBA to like one of the worst teams in the clutch ever. But again, let's leave the Bulls alone. I don't have the energy for them today.
Yes, 100%. Two more awards to go into now. The Sixth Man of the Year going to Malcolm Brogdon, beating out Bobby Portis and Emmanuel Quickly. Yeah. I think we both had Quickly in the previews, but honestly, I'm not bad at this decision.
I mean, well, if I'm not mistaken, I think I had Quickly and I think you had Brogdon. And I think my argument against Brogdon was just the fact that I think Emmanuel Quickly has improved much more and done so within his role, as opposed to Malcolm Brogdon, who I think is just kind of thriving under the circumstances that he's a six man on a team where under normal circumstances he would be a starter for most of the other 29 teams in the NBA, or at least a good variation of the other 29 teams in the NBA. So I think I kind of viewed it more as him taking advantage of an opportunity, kind of similar to like a lot of like the most improved player candidates who tend to get in like year two, right? And stuff like that, where it's like, it's kind of based off of a jump that was inevitable for Malcolm Brogdon as a guy who notoriously could be viewed as a legit starting point guard in this league. Yeah. Coming off the bench for this team, he's going to easily be like one of the best guys coming off of any bench in the entire NBA. So kind of, thriving by association in this case. So I have no hate with it. I still think Quickly had a legit shot for it, but I think Brogdon made sense. He was on one of the best teams in the NBA, and he was one of the better six men in the league. It means it's typically an easy correlation.
Yeah, 100%. Quickly, I mean, like, I think another thing that kind of went against Quickly, and I saw this on the stats when I was watching the Knicks game, his stats were very much inflated by the fact that he started a lot of the games at the end of the year. True. He averaged 22 points a game as a starter, only 13 points off the bench, where Brogdon basically was a six man throughout the entire year. So I think that was a pretty key factor.
True.
And yeah, I did look back. I did pick Malcolm Brogdon as my winner. I'm not mad at it. It could have gone to him or Quickly. I wouldn't be mad at, but I'm very glad that he was able to win it, and he's going to continue to show it. He's going to be absolutely key for the Celtics in order for another long playoff run. Yeah. Last but not least, and possibly the most important, like the most intriguing award here, Defensive Player of the Year, beating out both Evan Mobley and Brook Lopez, is Jaren Jackson Jr. I remember in our awards predictions, I went Brook Lopez, you went Triple J. I'm assuming that you're happy with the winner here.
I mean, obviously, I'm gonna take the dub for that one in the sense that like that was the guy that I went with. But I mentioned, I mentioned it on the preview, bro. That was one of those that I felt like could have really came down to the wire. I think of all the ones that we talked about, that one and Coach of the Year were the ones where I felt like there was a real debate. And even out of those two, I felt like Defensive Player of the Year was at least more of a discussion as opposed to Coach of the Year, where I feel like there were some other notable names. But I felt pretty comfortable that Mike Brown was going to be that guy in terms of who most people felt most comfortable about. It's funny, when you look at the circumstances for these two teams, talking about Milwaukee and then talking about Memphis, I still think that a great case could be made for both guys even after seeing who was awarded. But I think that if the impact metrics don't tell you the entire story defensively, I do think that that's where the highlight tape kicks in.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100%. Jaren Jackson definitely had the highlight tape behind his Defensive Player of the Year candidacy. Joel Embiid was calling out the Memphis scorekeepers, saying, maybe some of those blocks were buff, but at the same time, I think it was still a valid win for Jaren Jackson Jr. Like I mentioned, I went with Brook Lopez. Could have gone either way. I'm happy still Jaren Jackson Jr. won the award to match and win his All-Star season as well. Very great year for him, and he's been playing pretty well in the playoffs so far. Hopefully, he is able to continue that. Let us know down below what you guys think. Agree or disagree with the awards announced. I mean, Jay, final thoughts? Is there I think these are all been W's so far.
Yeah, I mean, didn't Paolo Banchero also win Rookie of the Year, but he didn't win it unanimously because some dude in Utah voted for Walker Kessler?
I don't know I don't think it's been announced. I know the whole Walker Kessler thing was because the voter ballots came out and one guy voted first place for Walker Kessler.
Yeah, and he was from he was from a Utah from a Utah sports network or something.
Yeah. I mean it hasn't been announced yet, but it's basically it's like we mentioned before.
Yeah.
It's basically inevitable that Paolo is gonna win a Rookie of the Year, but unfortunately not unanimous because apparently metrics said according to this guy won Walker Kessler the award. Final segment of the show, and you know what time it is. It is time for the NBA quiz, and I'm doing it a bit differently this time. We're gonna be doing a guess the player, and the way we're gonna do this is I'm gonna give you a player that's played for 5 or more teams. And the way I'm going to do this is for each of these players, I'm going to give you a chance to guess the player for each team I reveal that he has played for. So I'm going to start with their most least notable team all the way to his most notable team. And I'm going to try to give you a chance to see who you think the player is going to be. I have up to 4 players here. It's going to be very interesting. And I don't know. I'm not going to use a point system, but maybe in the future we could use a point system for this, and maybe I could participate in this in the future. But we'll see how this goes. But Jay, are you ready for this quiz?
Yeah, this is a unique format, so I'm interested to see how this goes.
Okay, so we're going to start with the first player here, and I'm going to tell you, Jay, that his least notable team is the Detroit Pistons. Mind you, these are all current players. So a Detroit Piston.
Are there any other context clues, points per game?
No, just straight. These are the teams that he's played for. You have to try and figure out who the player is. I'll give you you can have a guess per each team I reveal. So this is the first player, the Pistons. It's kind of if you can get it off just as a former Piston, that would be crazy. But
you said you said it's his least notable.
Yeah, so he's been around the league, but his least notable team is the Pistons.
Derrick Rose.
Holy shit! Yeah, you got it. Oh my god, you go. Wow, good. That was quick. Okay, yeah, it was Derrick Rose. I was gonna go with that first. Then I was gonna go with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Then the Cleveland Cavaliers, New York Knicks, and of course I was gonna end it with your Chicago Bulls. So you kind of get the idea, right? So I was gonna.
Okay. I'm understanding. Okay, cool.
Yeah, I tried to give you a layup the first one because it's your boy D Rose. These ones, it's gonna get a little bit harder from here. So the next guy I'm going to tell you his least notable team is the Charlotte Hornets.
Least notable team is the Charlotte Hornets. Ugh. What the heck?
Just name a random former Hornets player for sure too. So you can and it doesn't have to be that I'm not going to put his current team last. Because maybe there's a team that he's more known for from the past, but yeah, I'm gonna let you know that way.
Montrezl Harrell?
Oh my gosh, what the heck?
Oh, cool.
No way. What? Montrezl Harrell, yeah, that was a guy
Cool. Okay, see, come on, man. I got a little something. I got a little something in the chamber.
Okay, no, I'm very surprised. Jeez, okay, I was gonna go Hornets.
Yeah, this might be my new favorite kind of quiz, TV. Hold on, wait a minute.
Okay, yeah, it was the Hornets, and I was gonna go with the Wizards. His current team, the 76ers. Then I was gonna go with the Lakers, and then the Clippers to end it off because that was with his probably his best seasons in the league were probably with the Clippers. Okay, you're absolutely killing this quiz right now. Holy.
All right.
Okay, we have 2 more players here. I'm gonna go with this next guy over here. And I'm going to start with the Houston Rockets.
Ooh. Okay, we got to remember you said least. That's super important. Least notable. Ah, jeez. Houston's iffy because they didn't been through some bodies. And you said you don't. And I just want to make sure for context. You said you don't start with the team they're currently on usually, right?
I could put it anywhere actually because maybe the team that they're currently on is like they're probably like their least known team. So I'll give you that context as well.
All right. John Wall?
No. But the next team I'm going to give you, funnily enough, is the Washington Wizards.
Oh, that's brutal. What the heck? It's like I have a name, but it's like a nasty one. So like I don't believe that that's right.
Yeah, you never know. I could get it could get pretty crazy for this type of quiz.
I'm gonna say it, but I don't think it's right. Trevor Ariza?
He did play for both teams, but that is not the answer.
Yeah, see, it felt like a wild card. That felt random.
Yeah.
But still.
Next team I'm gonna give you is the Los Angeles Clippers.
Oh, see, this makes it even weirder now because we're talking. Oh, wait, is this Russ?
It is Russell Westbrook.
Oh my gosh, dude. See, because what's funny is, okay, because if you think about exactly how you laid it out,
yeah,
I guess John Wall earlier.
Yeah.
So like literally the flip side of that. Okay. Oh man. Okay, that makes sense though.
Yeah. So I was gonna go Rockets, Wizards, Clippers, then I was gonna put the Lakers next. I think that. And of course, I'm going to add OKC last. Yeah, of course, we're going to go with OKC last.
Wow, that's wild, though, because there was definitely a handful of players where I was like, okay, I've seen this path before. That's why I went John Wall so quick.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Come on, bro.
Yeah. No, I thought you were going to get in the next one because I was going to say the Wizards next. But, yeah, that was good. That was good. We have one more player here. Which team should I start off with here?
Oh, man.
The Dallas Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks. This is definitely gonna be a hard one, but Dallas Mavericks.
Wait a minute. Is it Kyrie?
No, it is not Kyrie.
I felt like that was you said because when we talk about least relevance, like I was like, yeah.
Potentially, no. I like the thinking. I do like the thinking, but the next team I'm gonna give you is the Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute. That's brutal. Okay. What the heck? This is probably somebody super random. I just feel it. Milwaukee? Oh, jeez. Ooh, I'm trying to think of dudes that have been on Milwaukee that have also been on Dallas. Like that's the issue I'm having.
Yeah. Even if you don't know so far, just throw the name and maybe you might just get it right. Who knows? Again, I think out of all these four, this is the tough. I thought Montrezl Harrell was going to be tough, but the fact that you got him right away, I was like, oh.
Yeah, when you looked at me, I was like, oh wow, dang. I might have played a bit of my weight with that one. I don't think he played on Dallas, but I'm gonna guess it anyway, just because I know he's been around a little bit. Wesley Matthews.
He has been on Dallas, but the
vision was there. The vision
was there.
Okay.
The next team I'm going to give you is the Boston Celtics.
Oh, okay. All right. Ooh. See, that doesn't. Ooh, see. No, so it's not. What the heck?
Yeah. Think out loud. Just for some names that are going through your mind.
Bro, because I started thinking old school for some reason. I was like, Jason Terry? I was like, no, he hasn't played for the Bucks. I'm tripping. But
yes, he has actually.
I'm seeing the people. I'm seeing the jerseys, TV. Like Rock would be here, bro. I'm seeing the jerseys, bro. It's just, it's the okay.
That's crazy. That's pretty crazy. I was like, oh damn,
bro. Look, I'm throwing the ball out here, bro. But like, so let's go back to them. You said Dallas, Bucks,
Milwaukee,
Boston.
Celtics.
All right.
If you can also just give me like if you want to like just like know the next team as well, I can like give you that as well to kind of help you out. Or just you can throw out a random name too.
Go to the next team because I feel like the next team will open it. I feel like the next team will open it.
The Miami Heat.
Oh wow, I don't know if that opened that at all. Miami rinse and repeats through people like nobody's business.
This guy has definitely been a journeyman. I'll say that. This guy has been a journeyman, but he's a relevant player for sure.
Oh jeez. What the heck? It's not the Morris twin. That's out. Because he didn't play for the Bucks.
He did not play for the Bucks. I'm telling you. I mean, also, yeah, like I mentioned, these are current players right now. Maybe in the future, if we do something like this, we might add some like past players to kind of like throw some throw some caution to the wind. But this is like, yeah, these are current players.
Oh man, I'm like sitting here thinking about the Miami Heat's roster, and I'm like, okay, who's like what the heck? Like when I think ultimate journeyman, even from Miami, I'm like Dwayne Dedman, but like I don't think he's played for Dallas.
I don't think so either, no. But I think he has played for I know he's played for the Bucks. I don't even know if he's played for the Celtics either. So
is Miami the last team?
No, there's one more team after this. Do you want to get the last team?
Yeah, give me the last team.
His most known team is the Phoenix Suns.
What the heck? What the heck?
His most known team for sure. This is where he's had the most success in his career. In my opinion, he's had his most.
Wait. Okay, maybe this is cheating, but like the most known doesn't mean he's there currently.
No.
It's not Javon Carter though. What the heck? Wait, is it Torrey Craig?
No, but you're the same type of player. You're along the same type of player.
What the heck?
Same type of player. Do you want me to give you his current team?
Yes.
The Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh, see, that's what I'm talking. Oh my gosh, dude.
Milwaukee Bucks is his current team.
What the heck?
A pretty recent member of the Milwaukee Bucks, I'll say that.
This is what's super sick about this because, mind you, I've named Javon Carter and Wesley Matthews already.
Yeah.
That's what's killing me about this right now.
A pretty recent addition to the Bucks, actually.
Jay Crowder? Wait. Can you tell me when Jay Crowder played for the Mavs?
He got drafted by them.
That's why. Okay.
He got drafted by the Mavs. He got drafted by the Mavs in 2013. He ended up going to he was on the Celtics, of course. That was a pretty like notable time for him as well.
The Celtics make sense. Okay, I'm seeing it now that you're like mentioning it out. Celtics, Miami, Bucks is now.
Phoenix for sure.
And Phoenix was when they made the run beforehand.
Yeah. And I was thinking of putting the Cavs somewhere near the bottom, but I think that would have like really thrown you off. I think.
Because the Cavs stint wasn't even that long. He was part of that crazy trade deadline where everything went haywire.
Yeah, I mean the Grizzlies' tenure wasn't really memorable as well. And then apparently he played 2 years for the Jazz. I've completely forgot about that. He played like 2 years.
I'm not gonna lie, the Mavs. When you said least notable and it was the Mavericks, dude, I've never pictured Jay Crowder in terms of like the start of his quote unquote career. I've never pictured it outside of that Celtics run.
I completely understand. I just remember him being
when you started with the Mavs, I was like, wait a minute. So I was instantly trying to name dudes who like I was like, okay, journeyman, cool, but like I'm trying to get this Mavericks thing down pat, and it was not clicking.
Yeah. In the future, again, like maybe in the future, like we should definitely do this. This is actually super fun. But
no, I like these. These are cool.
Yeah, like in the future, like when I say least notable, maybe like down the line, focus on like the top 3 or the top 2 because that's when it gets like really. But to be fair, You still absolutely killed that quiz. The Montrezl Harrell guess was crazy. Derrick Rose, I had a feel you could get that early just because you're a Bulls guy.
Yeah.
But man, that Montrezl Harrell thing was nuts. So good on you for that. But if you guys have any of these other players, maybe like in the future, like I could give JD assignment to find like these like players, and he can like try and come up with these lists as well. So that could be pretty.
Yeah,
cool.
that sounds cool. Yeah, we might have to alternate with these kind of quizzes because
Yeah.
I like this one. This is a cool little switch up.
Yeah. So yeah, let us know down below if you have any player suggestions as well. That would be pretty good as well. We're gonna maybe do this along in the future. But Jay, another great episode. The playoffs are well and truly underway. Man, another great episode in the books. Anything you have to say to these lovely people before we sign off?
Yeah, man. I think TV, you kind of talked about it at the top of the episode. Double upload coming soon. We want to start trying to lock into some of the off-season content and get a head start on some of the stuff that is taking place. Obviously, one of the most notable things in the NBA outside of the actual playoffs themselves is the coaching situations around the league.
Yeah.
TV has a little bit closer of a front row seat to that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
We'll get into that next week. But there's a lot of stuff going on around the association that isn't related to the NBA playoffs. We are going to make sure that we have the playoffs covered front to back throughout the entirety, all the way to the championship. But we do not want to neglect some of the other notable storylines that are coming up, including the NBA draft, some of the notable free agents that we do need to kind of keep an eye out on as things kind of continue to develop. And of course, this coaching thing is at the forefront of news right now as well. So stay tuned for all of that stuff because there is a ton of stuff to talk about. Ironically enough, outside of the postseason, which kind of makes this NBA season that much more intriguing because the postseason, of course, is going to be the poster child. Yeah. But there's a lot of other things, a lot of other moving parts around the NBA that are clicking right now, which is giving us a lot to talk about.
100%. And you're going to be able to catch all of that on the Hit Your Free Throws podcast. Again, once or twice a week, especially during the playoffs, you're going to be able to catch that. And also check out the page, man. We're gonna, if there's stuff that we don't cover on the podcast, be sure to know that we're going to be talking about it on the Instagram or the TikTok. So follow us over there. And also check out our personal socials at the Knockdown J, at TV on Basketball. Of course, stuff is going to be over there as well to check out. But of course, Hit Your Free Throws, that's where it's at if you want the best playoff content. If you want to hear about all the stuff that's going around in the NBA, be on the lookout for that. Again, thank you guys for joining us for another episode. It was an awesome time. Hope you all have a fantastic day. This is TV. Over there, it's Jay. We're signing out. Peace.
Peace.